First of all, let's cover some fundamental things. What is karma? And just to remind you, it comes from the root kr, to do, to act. Now, that means then that there's a causation law that comes into play. And that means that in terms of the framework, we are assuming a deterministic universe. Now, the principles of Maya tell us, well, it's not exactly deterministic because actually it's not an actual universe. Anyway, within the framework of this vacillating universe, there is time, there is space, there's causation, and there's also function. So it's nama rupa kriya. And kriya, the word function, kriya, also comes from the same root, karma, kri, to act, to do. And it is not just the action, therefore, it is also the effects of the action. Now, these effects, do they occur between the space of our perceived birth and death? And the answer is no, how can it be? So we have to change our thinking in terms of our evolutionary understanding that we are not going from dot to infinity. There's no straight line going on. From a materialist point of view, that's how it's viewed. We're born at a certain moment in time. We spend a life either usefully or useless, and we end it at a certain point. That point can be anywhere. So we don't think of it like this because the law of causation is a perpetual law. And that means that nature has no beginning, no end. It's more a cyclical process. And if you take any circle, try to determine where is A and where is B, which came first, the A point or the B point, it's not possible. So therefore, this eternality of nature is an axiom that we have from the beginning, on the basis that we have no other logical reason, apart from experience, no other logical reason for life, because if it's simply going from A to B in a straight line, then there's no purpose of life at all. It's simply like lighting a candle, extinguishing the flame at the end, without giving any explanation, and using the analogy of the seed and the tree. And we know that it doesn't end in the tree because the tree begets a seed and the process carries on, and there's a genetic movement which is directional. You might think, well, maybe it's not directional, maybe it's just a perpetual circle, like an eternal Ferris wheel going round. But then that would also be pointless. So we assume that there is a point. We assume that we cannot get at the end what is not there in the beginning. We cannot get a tree from a non-tree. The tree must have been potentially sitting there in the seed, and evolution therefore means an unfolding or a manifesting. This is what is behind the oft-used statement that I put out, Swami Vivekananda's succinct statement about what is religion, what is our goal, what is our purpose. Each soul is potentially divine, just as each seed is potentially a plant or a tree. It must have been coiled up inside somewhere, waiting to come out. Now that means that when we go on to a next life, let us say, it is not that we have to start again. It's that we have to carry over all our experience, because all our behavior is really due to our experience, what we have experienced before. Let's look at that in the biological range that we know about now today. We know there's a biological range, let's say, of a single-celled bacteria or a single-celled organism, relatively unsophisticated and yet highly complex when you look into it. And the complexity increases the more it evolves. And we assume that this evolution is to do with its learning process. I tried this, it failed, I'm going to do that. I'm going to develop this, I'm going to adapt to that. In a remarkably short time, actually, when you consider things. We know that some 3.5 billion years, the planet's been around for, let's say, 4.3 or 4.5 billion years. And we know that at least for the majority period of that, there has been organic life in its simplest form, eventually adapting. There is a great saying, adopt, adapt, improve. This could be the dictum of an evolution. So we know how to adopt, we know how to adapt, and we know how to improve. And it can therefore not be a mindless process. There must be some intentionality going on in it. That's the logical standpoint. Now, we're not concerned with the actuality of our universe. We think that it is entirely apparitional, and we do not take the universe to be actual. We don't take it for granted. We don't take gravity for granted. We don't take electrical energy for granted. We don't take time for granted. We don't take relativity for granted. And we don't take uncertainty for granted. None of these do we take for granted. Because our view is it must be apparitional. It's appearing one moment, disappearing the next. Now, behind all of that, then, is a static entity. But static doesn't mean unconscious. We can see a stone and we assume it's a static thing, it's not going anywhere. We can take it up, a small portion of it, like a pebble, we can throw it and make it skip in water. We are the commander of the stone. And to some extent, we are using the medium of the water and we are appreciating it with the eyes and we are observing the whole experience. The observation point is neither selecting, nor is it actively throwing, nor is it watching, nor is it sitting back with satisfaction to see how skillfully we made this skip along the water. None of this. And so, therefore, we know there is a knower, there's a witness behind everything. When we discover it, we see that there is no karma in this at all. And so when somebody says, do you believe in reincarnation? My standard response with a little bit of fun, twinkle in my eye, to say, absolutely not. I don't believe in this incarnation. Why would we believe in a reissue of it? And then I have to then explain. I know there are some people who get very upset with that kind of answer. So are you saying that we are not born again? I'm saying that all your experience is being carried over to the extent that you'll access your own freedom. Accessing your own freedom means there's nothing else to do except for operating for the welfare of all beings. And doing that in a sporting way without any sense of ignorance about it, knowing full well that it is a mithya, that it is an apparitional universe. Something like a game or a play of waves operating before us. And we learn how to surf the waves without losing our stability. So karma not only means the action, it means the consequences of your action. And for our purposes, every action has to be accompanied by a thought of some kind. Then you may say, well, what about the automatic actions that take place? A fly sits on your nose and you go like that. You try to swat it off. There are so many instinctual things, so many reactionary things that we engage in. And surely that is not consciously thought out. No, it's not. But at some point it was. At some point we learned that a fly is sensitive to movement, and then that becomes a reflex. And the reflex is built into our biology. What is the relationship between our physical biology and our mental state and all the behavioral inheritance that we have? Everything. Because the causal relationship is always there. The body is gross. The mind is subtle. The body is a product of the mind. It's not just a correlation. It's a manifestation. Behind it is an intention. And the intention comes out as a number of desires that we have. We desire this, we desire that, and those desires are based on our perceived relationship between the world in front of us. How do we view the world? How do we relate to it? And how do we make sure that we perpetuate our existence? And the only reason why we do it is because our true nature underneath it all is existence itself. It's not a quality. It's not something to be gained or lost. It is a substance. It is there itself. It is the only thing that exists permanently. Other things may exist in a relative form. They may exist in relation to the sense organs, to sight, to touch, to taste, and so on. But that means they are simply an interpretation filtered through the sense organs and endorsed and identified as a this or that. But all of these things change, and the trick that nature plays on us is it looks like a perpetual motion thing. It looks like something that is unchanging. We know that tomorrow will be a day. It is maybe in some respects like today. Some activities will change, but we have every confidence we'll wake up in the morning. We have every confidence the sun will go down in the evening. We have every confidence in our car that we will drive. We have every confidence that the dwelling place that we have will not change substantially. And yet, all these things are changing. A very quick historical examination will tell us that the place in which we are living was not there maybe 50, 60, 100 years ago. And based on that, we know it may well not be there 100 years hence. Of course, renovations can take place. And in Europe, you have things that stand 4,000 years and more, quite substantially. But will they stand for another 5,000 years, 6,000 years? Probably not. Language will change also. Everything will change. And we won't be around in our present form to see it. And yet, we are part of the change in the sense that the instrumentality of body and mind, the things which are observed, the things which are changing and yet are associated with ourselves at a fundamental level, is a facilitating mechanism that allow us to interpret the world and react to the world. And behind it is a thrust that Swami Vivekananda says is each soul is potentially divine. And the goal, yes, there's a goal, there's an objective, there's a meaning, there's a purpose. And the goal is to manifest this. And we are manifesting it all the time for good or bad. And you can interpret it as a spiraling upwards, a spiraling downwards. When we do the Enneagram Plus, we give so many levels of progression, so many levels of regression. And the trick that we have to sustain contentment in life is to notice where the beginning of a downward spiral starts and to stop it. And unnaturally to take it to a different level. Unnaturally because we have a command over it. We're not going with it. We're going against it. We are struggling. And actually, all biological life struggles. Is it only biological life? See, the greatest conundrum that we have is how we get from inert, inorganic matter to living organic matter, pulsing cells. There's a great mystery, unsolved. Nobody has solved it. It's unlikely anybody will. But we in Vedanta, we say, here's the reason. The reason is you think that it is inorganic, yes, in our definition, but actually every atom, even in a stone, is actively buzzing. If it wasn't living, if it wasn't full of energy, this stone would not really exist in its form. And it is part of a colossal movement. And this movement is part of an interaction with a whole planetary system. A whole solar system, including planets, affects what we have here. And one of the latest discoveries is that our climate is affected by Mars. When Mars acts in a certain way over eons, we can see it actually affects vortexing inside oceans and scrapes away, as it were, at the sea floor. And this we can archaeologically explore and match with all the temperamental aspects, if you will, of Mars. Now, if it happens with Mars, it happens with every other body. And so, astrology that was relegated to the realm of superstition in recent years, though practically many people still believe in it, comes now to suggest, well, wait, if Mars, which is I don't know how many million miles away, is able to affect in its orbiting, is able to affect the conditions on Earth, the oceans, the floor of the oceans, and therefore the whole environmental atmosphere that affects climate. Then what about the mind? There's every reason why we associate mind with the moon. When we say lunacy, we're surely evoking this thing that we call the moon, the mind. And when we look at, for example, the symbology of, say, Shiva, what are we looking at? The crescent moon peeping out from the corner of the hair. So karma, everything works on the basis of action, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and we cannot get away from it, provided we understand that there is a purpose. So we go from species to species, we go from step by step towards our ultimate goal, and really that means that theoretically, and it may take eons and eons, every single atom is moving toward its own freedom, and every person, every species will eventually come to its ultimate freedom. So when we are born on the basis of our preceding order, unconscious as it may be, and it is unconscious. So if we like familiar places, if we like familiar people, and if we like certain pleasures, if we have unfilled desires, then these are surely carried forward, regardless of the fact that the body, our temporary earth taxi, breaks down. It breaks down, we take another one. Do we take one immediately? No. The law of karma says, you earned this money, you earned this, you saved up. Now you have the right to spend it. So in the next life is not in the earthly life with this equipment. It's the holiday camp of heaven, or whatever you want to call it, where we spend our hard-earned karma. And we reap the benefits or otherwise of our actions. So theologically, it's a kind of heaven and hell that we're all kind of agreeing to, but we don't think it's the end. Because if it's the end, your journey is stumped. It doesn't continue. It has to continue if there is some purpose in life. When a seed evolves, as it were, into a tree, it doesn't change its mind halfway through and said, well, I changed my mind. I think I want a different species or a different way of looking at things.
Sorry, Swamiji.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop you in full flow.
Yeah.
So when we talk about karma and we get to build up whatever that is in the spiritual world or the next spiritual world, what's this one? Why are we building up in this one? Is this not just another phase for us? Did we not come from something before that? And then if this isn't as comfortable for us, is that because of something? Is that because of karma in a previous spiritual existence?
See, when you say previous, when you say forthcoming, when you say this, we're talking of a realm which is phenomenal. It's in the realm of phenomenon. What is the difference between phenomenon and noumenon? Well, phenomenon is something that we know. Noumenon is something that we don't know. And so all our experience, whether it is beyond this body or not, is all in the range of change. And the only conscious action that we have is here with this equipment, with this body-mind complex. This is the way that you can compare it to earning money and then spending it on holiday. Eventually you have to come back and earn some more, unless you have the trick of getting out of it. How do we get out of it? It's the realization we were never in it at all. So this coming and going, when you say I and we and so on and so forth, what are you talking about? Are you talking about this small body-mind complex that I choose to call I? And do I think that this I will perpetuate elsewhere? Well, there's a much more fundamental I that we have to tell about upfront. And that is the fundamental Atman. This is the divine essence. This is your infinite invisible. This is your own true nature. It doesn't come, it doesn't go. It's like a broadcast coming from the RTE, or in the UK, maybe it's BBC, and you catch it by tuning in your particular transistor radio, and you catch the grace of the BBC flowing, and then you ask a question. When my transistor dies or gets turned off, what becomes of the BBC? Nothing becomes of the BBC. The BBC is always there. It was always was there. And when I have the equipment, I can tune into it until the glory of that divine takes its hold on me and I become that, as it were. Even the language is awkward. I cannot become something that is already there, already existence. It's the awkwardness of language as we're confined to these fractional concepts. You get the idea? So you see, we remain subject to happiness and misery as long as we are bound by this causal law, this karma. And it's the lot of every person, of every human. No matter whether you have earned or learned something, or whether you're ignorant of something, whether you're good or whether you're wicked, the results of your actions will have its consequences. Now, the upside of this is you're all blessed. You're blessed because you come into this world with certain advantages. You earned these advantages from previous lives. You earned the advantage of learning about the truth contained in Vedanta. You have the advantage of a teacher. You have the advantage of a roof over your head, shoes on your feet. So in comparison to many other humans on this planet, you live in relative luxury. Now, all of this is no accident. So we don't believe in accidents. We don't believe in random chance events. Everything has a cause, and everything has naturally a result. There are many worldly impressions that are already accumulated in your mind. So many are the impressions created in this life also.
So,
yeah.
Sorry, Tom, so
yeah.
Is there not only then, there's the individual karma, if you like, that there is also a collective karma, like a social community karma, that are collective actions, even down to nationality, that there is that it's a much more far-reaching than just the individual, and that Atman that connects us all, that is the truth of all of us, makes us, and dispels the Maya, the material, and makes us this ethereal divine quality, and makes us a divine, and connects every single one of us. But there's an individual karma, but there's also a collective, if that makes sense.
No. How can it be? You're responsible for your own action. Let's look at it logically. That means, therefore, if you're good, everyone is good. Or if you're bad, everyone is bad. That kind of collectivity, no. You see, a collective decision, let us say on a national basis, is a collection of individual choices. You can see it in the world of modern politics, isn't it? The world of democracy is saying, well, despite the fact that we may be, let us say, put it in the United States context, you can say everyone is Republican, therefore everybody is responsible for the individual actions of the politicians. Not really. But didn't you put this politician there? Yes, it was my individual decision. I was never pressed down to it. So when we talk about karma, we are really talking about individual karma. There is no collective karma. However, the environment that you choose to move on, yes, that can be there. So supposing you are close to a family, let us say, then naturally there's a desire to be with that family in the, let us call it, in the future, assuming that you're going to continue on the world, on the round of good and evil deeds, or whatever karma you wish to perpetuate. But the choice is still yours, by the way. Even here and now, this is the only system that says you can be free now, because you see, there is no connectedness with the Atman. The Atman is not connected. It doesn't make a connection. It has no parts. We have to make this distinction. You cannot think of the Atman. The Atman cannot be known in the normal sense of it. The Atman is the knower. And so when you get to that aspect of understanding the nature of the Atman as the one universal principle, then you cannot think that anything is pervaded by anything. There's nothing that is pervading and there's nothing that is pervaded. I'm actually quoting language from a certain text, the Avadhuta Gita it's called, which is purely non-dualistic philosophy. Now the problem is, and this book will also say it, those people who say they are dualists or say they are non-dualists, they actually don't know the truth. Because as soon as you say it, you're putting things into an intellectual framework. You're not actually experiencing this unity. And so very few people will have gotten to that stage. Never mind, don't be put off by that. We're all moving toward it. And so let us use relative language if we choose, but underneath it all must be this understanding of non-duality. Or put it like this oneness without a second. And you cannot sit in Brahman, the ultimate principle, the absolute, and at the same time be in the relative. And you cannot be in the relative world and fully into the absolute. When you go to the absolute, the relative disappears.
So really, it doesn't matter, because the whole point is to understand the absolute and to understand your true identity. So really, it doesn't matter. Just that's the whole the point for existence is to understand that true identity, and that is ultimately freedom.
That's it.
The rest of it doesn't really.
Well, it doesn't matter to the extent that karma operates within the framework of time. You can stand on a platform and commiserate of the fact that you missed the train. You can't drag the train back. And so when people sit down and commiserate, why am I in this condition? What did I do wrong? Where was my karma? What did my karma do to put me in this situation? It's a useless question. Who cares?
Yeah.
The situation, you missed the train.
Yeah.
Now Can you now catch the next train? Yes. With one condition. It doesn't do you any good to fret. I hope the train is on time. When is the train coming?
Yeah.
When the train comes, enjoy that moment, enter into it.
Yeah. And so that's literally practicing the presence, really.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. And when you practice the presence, you're shaping all your future destiny, because all these effects come to you and saturate the unconscious. What is perpetuated beyond the body is essentially everything except the body. That experience, that cumulative experience, carries forward and requires satisfaction. What a beautiful thing if you say we don't require that because we got our freedom here and now. In the language I normally use, I want to try to get a non-return ticket. I don't want to save up here, spend it in the next life, ultimately come back, save again, repeat the process. Why don't you get a one-way ticket? Because you see, when you come back and back and back again, and so on and so forth, unfulfilled desires have to be there. Now, of course, karma is divided into kind of categories. But right now, the kind of karma we experience is called prarabdha karma. It is kind of compared to a bow and arrow. When you shoot the arrow, it's gone. It's finished. Where it will land according to how you shot it. And this you will have to go through in this life. But there is other karma from previous that hasn't manifested its fruit in this life and will have to manifest in the next life. But you see, you can change all of that in an instant right now. So theoretically, of course, since you are free already, you're never bound. Ramakrishna puts the example, a cave that is dark for 1,000 years, how long does it take to light? You light a match, it's instant. Realization can happen now, but it requires divine grace. It requires the grace of God, the grace of the Guru, and it requires your own resolution. Then your own resolution will be that which is devoid of desires. So in this world and previously, there are many worldly impressions already accumulated in your unconscious, your mind. And that's driving you forward. And then in addition to that, there are many impressions that are created in this life also. So as you struggle against them, they will actually seem to grow stronger because every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. Repression creates revolution. So if you are able to truly conquer all of these impressions, then you'll never lose sight of the ideal, and you'll never give up the struggle, and you'll get there. If you look at any creature, let's say a beetle, and you upset its balance or something like that, circumstance happens, and it's on its back and its legs are still moving. It doesn't wish to be on its back. It struggles hard to rectify its position. So we're all struggling hard in order to perpetuate a life and continue the journey. So what should we do? Well, we should not distress the mind by thinking of our past karma, what theology calls sins. Because however great a sin might be, it's great only in the eyes of humans, not in the eyes of God. This idea that God is a judge looking at us critically and punishing or rewarding us, this is not part of the Vedanta way of understanding. God's one glance can scatter off the sins of millions of births. This is the Bhakti Yoga position. And of course, there is the effect of karma, no doubt. It's because if you do any wrong action means an action that is steeped in ignorance, the ignorance that says that I am an individual, fragmented entity struggling. It's an egoistic position. That means that all action that comes from it will be egocentric. It will all be selfish. And it will all be dissatisfied. It will all be struggling to fulfill some kind of unfulfilled desire. So if you do any wrong action in this way, then you must suffer from the disquiet of the mind and the other consequences of it. Can't get away from it. There's a very useful summary of the great saints. Swami Shivananda, for example, Mahapurush Maharaj, was very accustomed to succinctly answering questions. And so a question can come up, which he answers, how can we reconcile the relentless law of karma, ruling man's destiny, and the idea of an omnipotent, beneficent God? Because surely God is putting something unfair. This causal law seems to be unfair. Yes, they appear irreconcilable if we take them literally as two compact aspects of the same theory, but strictly speaking, those who take karma in the cold, calculating spirit cannot accept the idea of a divine providence, all powerful, all merciful, and vice versa. You see, in the divine scheme of things, governed by love and compassion, pain and pleasure come to us for our own good in accordance with the divine will, irrespective of the law of karma. That is what some think, he says. They don't take karma so seriously. Even this prarabdha karma, that is this karma, that is this arrow that was shot and has to land somewhere in this life, even that consequence of previous actions in a previous life coming over, carried over, even that can be destroyed by God, of course. But God won't destroy it when you want it done. You can't dictate, please do away with it now. If he thinks that you are a great bhakta, if God thinks you're a great devotee and deserves special consideration, then he may destroy your prarabdha karma. There's no such thing as predestination. There's no such thing as social karma. It is only your action and yours alone. And that action is dependent on your choice. And the choice occurs in the conscious area of the mind, not in the unconscious area. But it's the unconscious area that needs to change. And it acts like a suction. If you're able to reform the unconscious mind, then your suction will be only good things, beneficent things coming to you. The smallest desire will propel you forward for rebirth. How does the desire go? Desire goes as soon as you feel completely and utterly fulfilled. Nothing more to be gained or lost, because everything is here full and free. And inherently that means a view of the world that says this world is a series of ripples and waves, operating no doubt on a causal law, where every crest of a wave is caused by a hollow, and every hollow is caused by a crest of a wave. But I am the ocean. I am the ocean that watches and enjoys the actions of the waves and can also look away. I don't have to look at the world completely. When I am steeped in Brahman, there's no waves, there's no ocean, there's no individuality, there's no subject, there's no object, there's no identity. There, the mind comes back together with speech, says the Upanishads. So, Let us saturate the mind with the divine presence. And once we do that habitually, having a magnificent obsession, let's say, where all we think of, where we eat, we drink, we sleep, the divine, in a blissful dance of love, if you will. Occupy the mind with that. Worrying about the effects of karma will create more karma, unfortunately, which won't be in your favor. Can we create good karma? Yes, of course. We reform the mind in a completely selfless way, with no sense of self-consciousness. It's the basis of spontaneous charity. We can all do it. And if we can do it at a moment out of compassion, then we can do it for 2 moments, 3 moments, 4 moments, a lifetime. I hope that all makes sense to you.
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you.
You see, the problem with the question answer sessions really is that, and this is why on Wednesdays we have it rephrased as seekers question and answer, with the hope that it's not just principles, it's not just theories, it's not just abstract concepts. It is something that we can reflect on and actively put into our living life and take it seriously. And the simple terms to increase our love and devotion for the author of life, who is not subject to karma, nor does it dispense karma, whose ultimate nature is the eternal self. And we were discussing with another devotee earlier on some misunderstandings in the process of meditation. I was saying, oh yes, I get to that point, how blissful it is, where there's nothing happening much, you know. I said, that's not meditation. That's pratyahara, that's withdrawing the mind. It's like wiping the material off a whiteboard so that you're able to put something in. And the putting something in is called dharana, concentration. And the concentration leads you to an identity deep within that is still felt as a separate thing until you incorporate yourself and engage in a sense of unity. And when you get that sense of unity, it's called meditation.
But I suppose, Swamiji, from the point of view of karma, the practical application of that then is to work, think, act with love, in a devotional way.
Yes. You may add not just love, non-demanding love.
Okay.
Yeah.
In everything that you do, from the smallest task to the biggest undertaking, that it is all done devotionally, and really that brings karma into the present in an active and positive way.
Yes. And with the confidence that grace is being bestowed on you and you are being carried in the swift current of divine grace.
So in the same way that karma, worrying about the past, is missing out on those blank checks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or ruminating in the past,
Yes.
and in your past karma is missing the blank checks. That working karmically now in the present is cashing in those checks and getting the best value, I guess. Does that if that makes
Absolutely. And it's not only that, but it's not practical, because if you try to establish the cause for everything, you'll only be speculating. And the cause will be involved in so much minutiae, since the causal factor in everything is thought. How many thoughts does a person have in a
Yep.
few moments? So you see, every thought, every action, every movement, every relation with the so-called external world creates its impression that adds to your unconscious bank balance.
Mm.
Make sure it's always in the black, not in the red.
And it's like you say, it's not.
Make sure it's not in the brown.
But it's I know that that's not that's the goal is to do that unconditionally. I guess it's not possible. It's certainly not possible for me to do that constantly.
Yes,
But
you see, you take that language, goal, objective, you put it to one side because goal is future-orientated language.
okay,
Swami Purnananda only mentions it as a matter of principle that each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest that. But you see, if you worry about the goal, you will not be manifesting it.
okay, yeah.
So you should, well, should we not have goals? Yes, yes. Post your goal somewhere and leave it. It's like climbing a mountain. You know the top is there. That's where you want to be. However, if you're constantly looking at the goal, looking at the top, let's say Mount Everest, you're going to fall into a big chasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be mindful. You have to be watch and pray. This is Jesus' language. Watch and pray.
And enjoy the journey, I suppose.
Enjoy the journey
The top
thoroughly.
will always be there. But that's yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Enjoy the journey.
Nice.
Otherwise, you see, you'll be watching a sunset and asking, when will the real sunset come? When will it arrive? I bought my concert tickets and I'm waiting. When will the show start? No, it's there. Please open your eyes and see it. The problem is our eyes are closed. When we open our eyes, we see things anew. It gives us a new optimism. When we see things for what they are and see it as the glory of the divine sitting and standing in front of us, perpetually there, continuously there, when we are able to open our eyes and notice it, then life becomes a sheer joy. But when we ruminate on the past, where is our mood?
Mm.
Yeah, our mood is framed as what a pity, what a fool, why did I do this, why did I wonder why this is so. I must have been some karma in the past, and so on and so forth. I wonder what it was. Let me examine it. Let me go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and find it out, or go into the past history. Maybe I was born as Cleopatra and now I'm suffering from it. All these stupid things. So it's a much better question. Why not? What next? Yeah, accept it. Why did I miss the train? Why did the train leave me behind? The train should have stopped. This train has no compassion for me. No, another train is coming. Be patient. And when it arrives, you enter into it and enjoy it. On Friday, I'm going up to Belfast by train. Much better way than going by car. You can sit there and enjoy the countryside as you go. But if you ask who made the train and why is it traveling so fast, I wonder who's driving it. I hope there's a driver there. And I hope that nobody's smoking in the toilets. And I hope that there's no awkward passenger next to me. And I hope that nobody has COVID and is sneezing on me. All of these things. Boy, why don't you look out of the window and enjoy the journey? With a drive, with a love of God, driving that, you are setting the scene for your next moment and the next moment, regardless of whether the body exists or not. So a wise person will make a good investment. using the time that is present, taking every second as your blank check, putting something useful in it, a useful thought. A thought which elevates the mind and elevates everything. Mind and body, what's the distinction? Nothing, except one of subtlety. That's all. And so the next body, the mind, depending on its condition, the mind will manifest the body that is the most suitable to carry on with all your fulfillments that you require, all the unconscious impressions that were there and are still there, driving you forward. Well, there'll be no end to that, and there'll be new impressions coming. So much better to get this one-way ticket now, non-return ticket. That option is there. And even if you don't get it, then at least you're prepared for a much better, fruitful life. And if you would want to unite with others, then you see, this is the beauty about the whole framework of karma that involves this transmigration, because somebody loses somebody, let us say, there's human language for it. Well, if you understand this principle of transmigration and you understand that the person who departed would like to be back with you, let us say, then can be born as your cousin's child or something like that, you see. So that's a very comforting way of thinking for those who are undergoing, let's say, bereavement. They say, well, and studying the Bhagavad Gita is very useful because it is all about this situation. And Krishna says up front, see, the Vedanta philosophy is the only approach that puts the truth up front in the beginning. It says, you are neither born nor will you die. You think that you're born, you think that you're dying, you think that you're depressed, you think that you're happy. None of this. Fundamentally, you are the eternal Atman. This has to be repeated, experientially understood, time and time again, until it is actually experienced, using the avenue of the sweet path of bhakti yoga for most people. The curious thing about everybody is they think that this particular form and environment that they're in is going to last forever. But a quick look in the mirror will tell you it's not going to happen like that. Now I look in the mirror and I'm thinking, either the mirror is a damn liar or I'm short-sighted. One of the two. But the truth is, the mirror is reflecting the truth. And it is only something that is an atomic structure. See the illusion. We think that this is a solid being sitting here with certain opinions, expressions, personality traits, and all the rest of it. When we analyze the physiology of it, we only find empty space. From the physicist's point of view, the illusion that the body is a solid entity should get completely dispelled when you see, as an atomic structure, it is mainly empty space. It's incredible to think of it because we don't normally think of it in these terms. And this is why I think modern physics and its discovery and its framing and phrasing is extremely useful to us. You think, are we living in such a vast universe? It's mainly empty space, mostly dilute. It's nothing big, it's nothing special. The density of it is very little overall. And we're trying to figure out how it works and going under the spell of the inscrutable Maya. What is science studying? Maya. And today I was reissuing my old stories to a devotee here and saying, you see, this Mother Nature has given us this misunderstanding, this mistake, this mistaken view. And all our views are just interpretations of something which is really not there solidly. That's what we call Maya. And it has to be like that, otherwise you and I won't be sitting here to discuss it. Because you see, all of us are here because in the biological system, there has to be a procreation that is a continuation of creativity, where there has to be some mating going on. And in the human level, you know how it works. An attraction between two people. And you go and have tea under beautiful chandeliers, very costly tea. Let's say you take it at the Ritz or somewhere. They charge you a fortune for it. You book up 3 months in advance. And then you decide you'll go for an expensive meal. And illogically, they take away the chandelier and give you a cheap candle. And you pay more for it. And the reason for that is because in the darkness, that is in the less light, you are more deluded about the person in front of you. And you never think that these two people who are so engaged with each other are carrying a septic tank with them. And carrying populations, billions and billions and trillions of bacterial species, microorganisms sitting on every square inch of the face. Imagine, with something inside, such as mucus and blood and phlegm and all these delightful things. It's all glossed over so that we can go along with the illusion, perpetuate the species, and develop our karma. So we have to get out of it. We have to get out of it by using that thing, not by withdrawing from it, but by using the useful keys that will give us our freedom. And these keys collectively are called yoga. It's a system that allows us to look at things differently and collect our emotions and steer them in a more liberating way. Take our actions and steer them in a more liberating way. Take all our knowledge and interpretations and steer it in a more liberating way. Take our capacity to dive deep into our own soul, called meditation. So all of this is there, all for our benefit, to get out of this illusion. What a wonderful game. Let us play it well. Oh, well, we exceeded our time quite nicely, but I think we started late also. So if there are no other questions, we'll leave it at that. Right. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
That was excellent. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay.
Thank you, Swamiji.
All good.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Om